Alright, welcome to another episode of You Got the Ron Dude. I'm your host, Ron Jammin. Thank you very much for tuning in. This episode, going to be talking about the Flash movie that came out this year, 2023. And I put 2023 in the title because that way there's no confusion with the TV show. And I think there was a movie in the 90s I haven't seen, but anyways, this review does contain spoilers. And I just wrote down, all my notes. Everything's kind of out of order, but I think you'll enjoy it. This movie was interesting. There's some good stuff, but ultimately, I'm going to be talking about everything that just didn't work for me, which is a lot of stuff. And it's another effort. It's definitely better than, the Justice League. That I'll do a review of eventually. That movie, compared to Snyder's Justice League. But anyways, this is a step up. I like the effort trying to set up, the multiverse and that, and different timelines, which I guess is different. I'll talk about that also. But anyways, all my socials, I'll have links in the description, so check those out. Leave a voice message. Leave comments. I'd love to hear from you. But anyways, let's get right into it. So before the movie came out, I remember I did an episode on here, and I was talking about, I think, theories in that I had. And also, I had confused multiverse with just alternate timelines. Which is confusing because I'm like, well, there's Supergirl instead of Superman. And, basically in the suit and that. We learn about Kal-El's fate, of course, as an infant, but it's but Zod is the same. And we have the two Barrys, but they look the same. But we have a different Batman. So I understand the difference. Alternate timeline, you come back and things are different. But then the multiverse we do see, and the special effects look awful. I don't know why. I saw one headline, I don't know if it was just for a video or if it was from the director saying it's supposed to look bad. And I'm like, why? All the CG and it just looked terrible. Either go animation cartoon or CG the characters and finish the job. But, when he's in that realm, that kind of arena, and you see all the different versions of Superman and different timelines and outcomes and stuff, it's kind of why does it look so bad? I don't understand that. I mean, again, to bring up Justice League, that intro with Superman, it's you couldn't even finish the CGI face, the mouth. That to me is just a big F you to fans. But yeah, that was very confusing. Well, The Flash is fun, fast, weird, and unbalanced. There's a lot of good stuff, a lot of good ingredients. I was really thrilled about, of course, Batman returning, Michael Keaton, 30 years later. Even Zod, I knew we were going to see Michael Shannon as Zod again. They were going to figure something out. But, of course, Ezra as the Flash, he's great. But this movie, I don't know if it needed a different director, maybe a different cinematographer. Because I'll talk more about that later, but I was surprised the movie even got released, as I'm sure many of you were. All because of the accusations and, all that bad stuff that Ezra Miller got into. It's very public. And for whatever reason, cancel culture, I guess the studio, I don't know, they're just well, it's been delayed so many times, let's just put it out. I understand they want to make their money back, but projected $200 million loss for the studio, which is huge. And, the marketing for the movie was great. And I thought audiences were going to go crazy, and it's like all the stuff with Ezra, maybe they thought like, well, we'll have Batman and Zod in it and Supergirl, and maybe hopefully that'll overshadow. But it's like, no, these days cancel culture, it's like that's it. And you don't want the studio to lose the money, but everything was so bad already with the DC universe. Everything's so confusing. We have so many Batmans, active Batmans. George Clooney at the end. What were they thinking with that? Now, I grew up in the 90s, so I loved Batman and Robin. I never understood the hate. It's campy, it's fun. Too many Freeze puns from Mr. Freeze. But I know it gets confusing because it's like, well, is this a kid's movie? You got Poison Ivy, who, oh my gosh, Uma does not get enough praise. She is so sexy in that movie. But that leads back to, is this a kid's movie? We're selling toys, Mr. Freeze, and I do believe it is PG-13, but still, it's like, it's so campy and hokey, yet the sexual tones in that, you're kind of like, I don't know. But anyways, with the George Clooney cameo at the end, I like that. I did not see that coming. I've always hoped that he would return because he has a great commanding voice, and I'm sure they can get him a suit to where he can move his head because so goofy. It seemed like Joel Schumacher was just like, okay, so the Batmobile is going to be like taking off real fast, so just like open your eyes real big because you can't really move your head around, because you watch that and it's laughable. But what were they? It's just that movie gets so much hate, Batman and Robin. It's like Gigli for the Batman franchise. I know Affleck played Batman, good tie-in there, but it's just universally hated for some reason. It's not a bad movie at all. But why have Clooney at the end? I don't get that. Maybe Barry comes back, the car pulls up, and it's Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. That seems to make more sense, but I don't know. They must have convinced the studio. I don't know what deal they had worked out with George. She's like, am I going to be playing Batman again, or is this like a one-time thing? Well, before watching the movie, I wanted to see the action scenes, and on YouTube I was watching the one Ben Affleck's Batman intro, and on the Bat Pod, and great looking chase in that, a lot of action. But when he's talking to Barry, I'm like, why isn't his mouth moving? Because some words, like, you'll say it back because they're like, well, maybe none of those words you really close your mouth or anything. But I was like, no, why isn't his mouth moving? And I'm like, maybe somebody edited it like that and then they threw it up on YouTube for whatever reason. So I'm watching the movie on Max. I still want to say HBO. I'm watching it and I'm like, how come his mouth isn't moving? What is this? I don't know what happened with that. DC and the mouths, come on, again? Bad enough with Superman with that horrible CGI mustache cover-up. And now this, it's like his mouth doesn't move? Come on. It's not funny, it's insulting to fans. Like, that's something for a parody. Have somebody talking and their mouth not moving at all. Well, despite all my concerns, all the issues and problems, more I'll get into in a little bit, the plot is easy to follow, which is good. It doesn't branch out, try to set up other movies. And at this point, who's surprised? I mean, like I said, the DC movieverse, it's just a mess. Yet we have Wonder Woman 3 being in talks. Aquaman 2's coming out. Robert Pattinson is the most recent Batman. So it's like, okay. But I do like, it's about Barry going back in time, trying to save his mom. Now, the problem is, I think in that episode I made before the movie came out, I said, I think I know what's going to happen. He's going to go back, change things, come back. Things are a mess. So then he has to reverse what he did. And that's what happens. Come on, writers. Throw a twist in there. Have him get stuck somewhere. The time travel thing doesn't really make sense. Not even Barry is sure how he's doing it. And it's not really explained. It's just too easy. And when both Barrys are going back and forth, you know, I like that. But again, it's like, you don't know what you're doing, really. I could be missing something. I haven't watched the series at all. But the heart of the story, it's really sentimental. And I love the scenes between Barry and his mom. That was really heartwarming. And, you know, just like in the beginning of Justice League, in both versions, you have that, not bank robbery, but when they held the people hostage and threatened to blow everyone up, it's like, okay. And in this movie, in the beginning, with the chase with Affleck's Batman, it's like, okay, but those scenes don't have anything to do with the rest of the movie. So I understand you want to introduce Affleck's Batman. The Wonder Woman cameo was nice. The humor in this movie works a lot better because it's Barry. We know he's goofy. Justice League? No. You watch Batman v Superman, and then you watch Joss Whedon's Justice League, you're like, Batman's a comic now? What's going on here? Why is everybody so funny? But anyways, you know, I like the cameos in that, but it's just like, this scene, if they tied it into the end of the movie or something, it's more interesting. But otherwise, it's kind of like, is that it? Falcone's kid, so you got him, yay? And what does that have to do with this? And back to the ingredients thing, it's like going to the store, okay, we need this to make that, get all the ingredients, and then you buy a bunch of other stuff, random stuff. You come back and you're like, oh, that wasn't on the list. I just said these ingredients. And you're like, yeah, but we can make more stuff. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't on the list. What are you doing? The actress Sasha Callie, I don't know, is Kara Zor-El. Kara. Anywho, she's phenomenal. I could see her playing anyone and anything. Great job. I love the voice. And it's like, she's not like trying too hard to sell the performance. And it's just so natural. But I was confused because at the end, the big battle, so she gets stabbed. And that just kills her. It's not kryptonite or anything. Because you figure if Zod, if he had kryptonite on him, it would affect him as well, I believe. And one scene, this ties back, again, back to the Dark Knight. So when Supergirl, she sees Zod killing, I believe, the general, and she reacts to it. But then she just leaves. She goes back, you know, to the Batcave, and it's like, okay, why didn't you do anything? And the Dark Knight, you think about, you know, somebody had to point this out. I never thought of it before, but, you know, the party scene, the Joker and his men crash the party, and then Batman dives out the window to save Rachel. They land on the vehicle, I think. And then it just cuts to the next scene. You're like, did he go back upstairs? The Joker, did he kill all those people? What happened? They just kind of leave it like, oh man, my back. So Rachel, do you want to get some dinner? Hey, it's just one of those things you're like, you can't even take the elevator back up there? Come on. But it was just very bizarre. Because she doesn't need any help. Just like Superman, people said, you know, in Justice League, once he comes back, it's like, you guys go ahead and take a break. I got this. Steppenwolf, I'd be stepping on this wolf, whatever. But let me know what you think. Well, unfortunately, much like Mark Hamill on his thoughts about Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, Michael Shannon was pretty open about not being thrilled with his character returning because there's not a lot of depth to it. Now, I would argue we already know his mission. He even says it again in this movie. And it's the same mission, of course. So I didn't have a problem with it. I was thrilled to see him in the trailers. Thrilled. Doesn't have a lot of screen time. It's mostly action, but that's what I love. So it's too bad, and it's kind of like, why even come back? Why even sign on? And I mean, I can understand from his perspective. Maybe, with the alternate timeline, maybe he has different plans. That could be interesting. But I thought the character served its purpose. I didn't want any more from him. And, the story isn't about him. It's, more focused on going back, changing stuff, but then coming back and having to reverse everything and try and win again and again. So he's not the only villain in the movie, I'll say. Not the only challenge. Now, onto the topic of Batman. So I read that George Clooney's Bruce Wayne replaced Affleck's in that timeline. So that's interesting. But, again, it was a big surprise. I didn't expect Clooney of all Batmans. Again, I think Robert Pattinson, that would have gotten people cheering. It's great to see Clooney. Like I said, I was a fan of the Batman and Robin. I'll defend that movie till the end of time. It's not a bad movie. You got to give it a chance. Or tell me what made it so terrible for you. Michael Keaton, him returning, it's too bad Ezra got into all that trouble. That really messed with things. Because Michael Keaton, Batman, 1989, Batman Returns, 92, and then, that was it for him. And he's done, a lot of movies since, of course, but him coming back, I think if it weren't for all the public, tirades and that from Ezra, I think this movie had a better chance of performing well at the box office. So what convinced Keaton to come back as Batman? Because to me, imagine him reading the script and being like, this is actually pretty clever. Because it's like him in his timeline, same character, but, different Justice League, which I like. Because there are no metahumans, but yet we have Supergirl. So I don't understand that. Like saying we don't have anybody with powers. It's like, wake up, we got Supergirl. But yeah, I'm curious what convinced him to come back. And I'll have to watch interviews with him, because if it was the story, if he just wanted to return as the character, and I love what the director did with him, especially mostly the action sequences. Because Batman was so fast and just swooping in and out and very clever, using the explosion to get that elevator up. But I don't know if we're going to see him again as Batman. Because, I thought it was nice when Barry, he tells Affleck's Batman, I could save your parents. And then Affleck gives out a mini speech. And then Keaton's Batman, talking to Barry. I like those conversations. They're very short, but you let them breathe and they impact you. And I was surprised that Barry didn't even try to save either Batman's parents. Because it seemed like, with him, it's not like, oh yeah, I'll listen to what you say, no problem. Like, he'd go off and do his own thing. So, maybe they'd considered that. Maybe that wasn't one of the screenplay versions, but I would have liked to have seen that. Because when there's a timeline, there's just no Batman. Now, maybe this is explained in the show, but despite at the end, Barry, he goes to court and they see the footage and you see his dad, his face in that. And it's like, oh great, everything's cleared up. But who killed Barry's mom? Or did she kill herself for whatever reason? I'd like to know. Because again, I haven't seen the show at all. But in this version, is everything like the same? Everything happened the same? So I'd like to know, but again, leave a voice message or a comment. Well, the title of this movie, it's not only underwhelming, but it doesn't factor in everything. I mean, you have Batman returning, you have Supergirl, you have another Barry, you have Zod, and all these characters, even though, he forms another Justice League, and even though at the heart of it, it's Barry's story, still, the Flash, it's like, okay. Nothing about Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman returning. I would have come up with a more fitting title. Not necessarily better, I mean, his character is the Flash, but that's it, that's all you got? I mean, just call it Barry. But let me know what ideas you had or have. Or does the title fit for you? Does it work? And like I mentioned earlier, this movie I was researching, and over the 5 years, the release date was moved around, and everything from the announcement of it, and of course the pandemic, that affected a lot of people in that. But still, can't believe it was released. You figure to be shelved. All the stuff with Ezra, because if that was part of the marketing, if they staged it all, it's kind of like, I'd go with something less, brutal. Like have him doing pranks or something, I don't know. But I'm just saying, if it was staged, for whatever reason. 'Cause it's like, DC's falling apart in the movieverse, so we gotta promote this thing. Gotta get eyeballs. People love controversy. It's like, yeah, but crimes are different. So if you don't already know, I love action sequences. Too many speeches, the same old speeches, Guys, we got to use our powers. We got to help people. We got to do this, that. Sorry, I doubted you. Yabba dabba do. Every day the enemy grows stronger, and I'm like, do something. I love the X-Men movies. Bryan Singer, his movies obviously stand out. And with his movies, it works. The action in that doesn't deliver as much as the emotional moments. He makes it work, but ever since then, I'm kind of like, no more speeches. Guys, what do we do with our powers? I'm sitting there, use them. Move. Do something. All this doubting and speeches and blah, blah, blah. Action. Now, while the action in this movie looks great, there's nothing that really stands out, which is unfortunate. And even at the last battle, again, back to the effects looking bad at some points, there's a shot of the other Barry, and, he's in his suit, of course, and he's just, like, moving weird. It's like a glitch thing, if you know what I'm talking about. He's talking to the other Barry, and I'm like, what's going on with the picture here? It just doesn't look right. I don't know if he was like phasing or something, or just bad CGI, but overall there's a decent amount of action in this movie, which I like. But there's just nothing I'd, take out and watch on its own, which is too bad. You watch this once and it's like, okay. I mean, Supergirl versus Zod, I would have done a little bit more, make it more of a fight, just like in Man of Steel. But still very, intense fights in that. Of course, Batman, you're kind of like, did he stretch before he left? Because that was pretty impressive. All that looked great. And another thing that kind of ties into, his mom's death. Like, we don't know who killed her, if she killed herself for some reason. I couldn't help but think, wouldn't Barry's dad have gotten a receipt for the can of tomatoes? And wouldn't that have helped with the case? Now, maybe he didn't take the receipt. He's like, yeah, I'm going here buying a can of tomatoes. What do I need documentation for? And it's funny because next day or however long after, I went to the store and I'm passing by the canned tomatoes, and I'm like, wow, I'll never look at those the same again. But a receipt? No? Let me know. Leave a voice message, comment. Love to hear from you. And Ron Livingston, great job. Great, quote-unquote, replacement for Billy Crudup. Another one of my favorite actors. They did a really good job with that. That's one of those that are like, oh, I thought it was the same person. And of course, I always see, hey, Peter, what's happening? So, we need to talk about this case, okay? So, your dad didn't get a receipt from the store. I know, I'll let it go. But, great job in casting. So, I was very happy with that. Now, if you're a fan of Kevin Smith, I'm not really going to spoil too much, but in the first evening with Kevin Smith from like 2001 or 2, he talks about being attached to write a Superman script, and the producer, well, I guess I will spoil it, wanted Superman to fight a giant spider for some reason. And the story kind of ties into Wild Wild West, which is a movie that the producer also produced. And that I won't spoil, but Nick Cage, in the 90s, mid to late 90s, was attached to play Superman. They did fittings. There's been photos released online, of course. But Kevin Smith tells that story. So in this movie, when you see that, if you're a fan of, the View Askew universe, as I am, you probably laughed when you saw that. Like, the giant spider, there it is. But check out all the evenings with Kevin Smith. 3 Evening with Kevin Smith. His stand-up special is great. But anyways, I like that tie-in. I don't know if they were going for a laugh or just kind of a nod to Kevin Smith. Well, what's next for DC? Well, we know we got Aquaman 2 on the way. It's hard to tell how that one's going to do. First one did great. You had the Wonder Woman, which blew everyone away, the solo movie. Just these movies are so hit and miss. Because then you have Justice League, which underperformed and wasn't even finished, really. Just a very different take on the characters. But then you have Aquaman, and that's a great movie. People really responded to it. But even the little changes, like, it didn't bother me in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think Amber Heard's character is at Mara. She speaks with an accent in his movie. But that was filmed, I believe, before, because him and his wife had to leave the project. So this is like 2016, 2017. But you look at the different creative choices, and I'd still like to see more from Zack Snyder. I praise Batman v Superman. I never understood the hate. Now, the Martha thing, when I first saw it, I had no problem with it. But you break it down, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe he'd been like, let's finish this job together, and then we'll go head-to-head again. Something like that. I get that, but it didn't ruin the movie for me. And Justice League, the 4-hour cut, the Snyder version, I adore it. I praise it. I'm glad he was able to get the money to finish it and release it. Because I remember somebody from the studio said, well, if we put that version out, it means that we were wrong the first time. I disagree, just because we've always had, different cuts of movies. Extended cuts, director's cuts. I mean, heck, you have deleted scenes. So different versions, it's subjective. It doesn't mean like, oh, we were wrong, my bad. In this case, you were wrong, I'd say. You want to get your bonuses in that, which I understand, but it's like, the expense of the fans, just finish the movie, But it's hard to tell. I mean, obviously things are always going to be rebooted. I mean, we're on our, 5th Batman, maybe 6th as far as movies. And you have a different timeline with the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix. I believe they're filming that right now, the sequel. The original, that one did very well. You have the Suicide Squad. People don't seem too crazy about Harley Quinn. I really like Birds of Prey. I think that underperformed for whatever reason. The action was great, and she's just fantastic as Harley. Margot Robbie. I first saw her name, I read it as Margaret. And I'm like, why are people saying Margot? But I don't even know. I mean, you have so many different options, directions. It's like, where do you go? Because our Justice League, not all of them, reunited in the Flash. And it's like, okay. But Cyborg, he's just got a bad attitude. He doesn't really offer much. Because all the stuff he's looking up, it's like, well, we can do that too. How many times has, Affleck's Batman been on the computer? And it's kind of like a bad version of Ultron, I'll say. And I like, we see more, of course, of the character in Snyder's Justice League, Victor. And I like everything with the father, that dynamic. But, a solo Cyborg movie, it's kind of like, oh, no thanks. No, we didn't order it. There's just nothing really to the character. And again, it comes back to the problem. Like, you look at, Justice League, back to that bank scene for the intro. It's like, well, Wonder Woman is moving like the Flash. Dodging bullets and stuff. Or rather, dodging. Protecting the people. She's like going back and forth. And it's like, so we don't need the Flash. Again, Cyborg with the computer stuff. It's like, nope, that's not unique. And, Aquaman, it's like, you take him out, a great character. I mean, Momoa's great in any role, but you just have Superman, that's it. Like, he can take out armies. Like Batman said, he could destroy everything. So it's kind of like, I don't know if we need a league. But Henry Cavill, there's always reports he's back as Batman. Batman. My bad. You know what? I'm going to keep that in. This segment is over 5 minutes, so I don't want to re-record this. Plus, I don't remember everything I said word for word. So, Henry Cavill. Superman, yes or no? Just make a decision. And Affleck is Batman, I don't know. Because I still want to see the Batman. The one that Robert Pattinson did. Because he'd been attached to, I believe, direct and, of course, star in that. Around the time Batman v Superman came out. But it's just so messy. And this movie, it doesn't create that kind of hope that you want. It doesn't set up like a Thanos. Infinity Stones. Just something. Connect all these movies. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I really liked him. I think he did a great job, made it his own. Seems like a character you do not want to mess with. But that's up in the air. And that's the problem. I don't know what I want. I don't know if I want more movies. Heck, you look at Marvel, all the stuff they put out since Endgame, and you're like, you just finish this big meal, you're satisfied, your belly hurts, and then you get like 20 trays of desserts, and it's like, thanks, but no, I'm good for a while. I thought like now, 4 years later, they'd start coming out with more content. Because Endgame is so epic, so massive. And that snap at the end, I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to need a break for a while. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Leave some voice messages, some comments, links to my socials in the description. And that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, let me know what you think, what you thought of the movie. What do you want from the DC movieverse? Directors, actors? Should we just scrap it all and start fresh? So let me know. And thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. I will see you next time.